Billy loves big bagels, and he loves to bring them to his brother Ben.
Hey, Dad, if you could finish up with those vocal exercises, it'd be nice if we could start recording.
Listen here. Although you're 16 years old, you can't even begin to grasp the profundity of what I'm talking about here. You got to practice until you can't get it wrong. The preparation is what creates the success and the magic that the listeners hear. So I have to prepare myself. I don't want to damage my vocal cords. Just give me
okay
5 more seconds, and I should be fine.
I see.
When you go on the show, you don't want to try to do different voices, Bean, without having prepared the voices. You don't want to just hop on the show and try a voice, and it doesn't work. I got to practice these things. So if you just let me practice, that's all I need. Just 30 more seconds.
You've been doing this for a half hour, though. I think we should be wrapping up now.
All right, Bean. So you're back from your trip. You visited Grandpa, and I have some tough questions for you.
All right, bring them on.
Now, her name is Havana, but I call her Bean because when she was born and she was a small child, she looked like a bean in my mind. But anyway, so we're talking about homeschooling. And there was a time in your life where you were homeschooled, and now you go to a great school that we love called St. Augustine. But when you were homeschooled, can you describe the experience of what you remember about being homeschooled?
Well, I learned a whole bunch. I read a whole bunch, was super educated on history.
Yep.
And, I don't think I'd ever read so much in my life.
And when you hopped into school, could you keep up with the other kids?
Oh, 100%.
Folks, this just in, homeschooling can be and is very effective, especially when you compare it to public school, which is essentially the gathering of a bunch of students. And then once the students are gathered, we salute the flag, we do recess, we do lunch, we have gossip, we have discipline issues. And the one thing we do at public schools is we don't educate our kids.
Get ready to enter the Thrive Time Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the C&Z up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom and we'll show you how to get
Yes, and yes, Thrive Nation, it is a very special occasion because it is always profound when you are above the ground. Think about that for a minute. It is always profound when you are above the ground. So many of us need to be so thankful for every day that God gives us. You know, every day that we live is a gift from God, and what we do with that day is a gift to God. And on today's show, we're going to dive into kind of a difficult, what could be seen as a Debbie Downer conversation. But we have a lot of you listening to this show who just found out that you're going to be homeschooling your child. You just found out that the school that you wanted to send your kids to this year is closed for the foreseeable future because of a virus that, by the way, according to Dr. Ben Carson, we've had on the show, and Dr. Scott Jensen, this virus is, James, the attorney, it's so dangerous that only 1 out of 1 million kids that would get COVID-19 would actually die from it. It's literally a 1 out of 1 million chance of dying from COVID-19 if you're a kid. But still, the public health officials have decided to essentially weaponize the health department and to force schools to be closed. And now you have teachers' unions out in California saying they're not going to return to work again unless the state of California agrees to defund its police. And so here we are. Many people are homeschooling. And now I want to introduce everybody to today's guest, Patricia. Welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Very excited.
So, Patricia, what is your first and last name?
Patricia Halliday.
How do you spell the last name?
Halliday.
Okay. Now, if people want to learn more about you, was there a website or is there a phone number? Is there because a lot of our listeners like to Google search and kind of verify, what we're saying. Where can people learn more about you, Patricia?
Oh, yeah. They can contact me by calling 941-677-0060, or they can visit my website, McGuffey'sOnlineTutor.com.
Okay,
McGuffey'sOnlineTutor.com.
And did you start McGuffey's Online Tutor? What is McGuffey's Online Tutor?
Well, McGuffey's is being revamped right now to address the issues that we have. But the way we started, and I say we because it was a homeschool Christian public service project for our children. My husband and I, we have 4 children. So we started that website to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, to get them to share what they were learning with the world.
And how many kids do you and your husband have?
4 children.
Why did you
2 girls,
choose
2 boys.
2 girls and 2 boys? Why did you decide to homeschool your kids?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't like the socializing and what was happening with that. So yeah, that was the main reason. It was our oldest daughter, and my husband said, "Well, if you're going to homeschool her, you got to homeschool Allison." That was our younger daughter. We didn't have the boys at the time, and I said, "Really? I want a connection with the community still, and she's only in 2nd grade, and things are still okay." But my husband said, "Nope, both of them." I said, "Okay," and it's been a blessing ever since. I loved it so much that we went and adopted 2 boys from Poland.
Now you said you didn't like the socializing that was happening. What do you mean? What stuff was happening?
Well, you can see very plainly today that the public schools are really directed by outright humanism and really sexualizing our children. You see that very plainly today. And now you have even satanic thoughts coming in. I used to tutor at a friend's school in Washington, D.C., which was a Quaker school.
Yeah.
And that was a private school. And we already had, quote unquote, witches there making out their spells and constitutional books. And, so you have this kind of creeping in from the corners now. You really see it if you're looking. But really you have evidence by all the lies. The lies are everywhere. In the textbooks, in the media, the lies are everywhere. And, you don't want to give your children over just to be lied to all the time.
It's interesting, but this is a very crazy time. The founder of Black Lives Matter, the founder of Black Lives Matter has come out and said openly that she is a Marxist. We know that George Soros is funding Black Lives Matter. George Soros, the same George Soros who openly, not during a 60 Minutes interview on 60 Minutes, he openly admitted to being a Nazi at the age of 14 and not feeling bad about it. This group, yeah. Black Lives Matter, is now showing up in the national curriculum of public schools all over the country. All over the country. Mm-hmm. And so you have a solution.
And my mother grew up fatherless because of that. My mother's German. So her father died when she was 6 months old because of that war, because of that evil. So I definitely understand George Soros.
So you have a solution for all the folks out there that are wanting to homeschool. The idea of homeschooling can be overwhelming. And on today's show, I'm not going to get into all the details, but I have 3 quick questions I have for you, and then I want to give everybody your contact information again. 1, can anybody homeschool if they have a sound mind and they want to do it? I mean, if someone has the want to and they have a sound mind, do you believe any of the parents out there are equipped to homeschool?
Absolutely. No question.
The public school system, I am of the belief that it couldn't be worse. I literally believe, I've seen people who are not the best homeschool parents who've told me, hey, I'm not the best homeschool parent This is what they'll say to me. Clay, I know that you guys have homeschooled. I'm not the best homeschool parent. I only spend about 2 hours a day homeschooling because I have a job. And I say, well, that's more one-on-one time than they get at school. Do you believe that anybody can homeschool more effectively than the teachers in public schools can teach?
Well, 2 hours of, I don't want to say 100% truth, but what you think is truth that you're giving to your child, that you've researched, that you really want them to know with love and to better their future, is far better than 8 hours of chaos and lies and, because the children, the socializing are the teachers. They're the ones with all the power now. And so your children are learning from the other children that are in there, in the class with them.
True.
So 2 hours with your child is far better than public school, in my opinion.
I agree. Now, the only part I don't agree with is I don't think it's your opinion. I think it's fact, and I think people don't want to know the facts. But I'm just telling you, in our office, when I interview kids who have been homeschooled, I always know who they are, and they're always the best employees. Every time. Anytime I hire somebody and they're homeschooled, I know it's going to work out well, and it always does work out well because they have a unique set of values. They have critical thinking skills. They can think. Their brains, they can pay attention. They can hold a thought. They are less sarcastic. I can go on and on. Now, we have an attorney here, James. He is here from New York City, from Manhattan. He's moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And James is a great guy, a friend. And James, will you tell the listeners out there, what's your first and last name? And then what questions do you have for Patricia?
Hi, my name is James D. Cristofaro. My website is thelawyerjames.com, thelawyerjames.com. And, my I grew up in a rural, somewhat rural part of New York, out in eastern Long Island, Southampton. I'm 47 years old. I graduated high school in 1991. And my graduating class was 116 people. And I walked to school or biked to school every day. And my two younger brothers chose to homeschool for several years. I was given the option, but declined it because my friends were in school. I wanted to hang out with my friends. I wanted to interact with others, and I wanted to play sports. I just want to give you a little bit of background. My question sort of relates to the system. I think, either I didn't know what I know now then, and I clearly didn't, but and it may have changed over time. But how do you see the future of public education versus private education versus homeschooling? It seems to me to be a little bit disrupted now, and it's going through some sort of a crisis, just like the rest of society on very different levels.
I took a walk about 3-4 days ago at sunset. And as I was walking and watching the sunset, it came to me, the sun is setting on public education, thank God. The sun is setting on public education.
So what happens next?
The parents that I'm hearing from are disgusted that the teachers are not coming to the rescue for them to take their children back into the schools.
Clay, what did they say in California? Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. So I think it's the trust in the teachers and the system and sports. What are you going to do with sports now? I mean, we can go for an hour just on what's going on in sports. So, they might hang on with their fingernails, but there's so many problems that I just think the sun is setting on public education.
I hope so.
Private education, pardon me?
I hope so. I hope what you're saying is correct because public school is crap. We had a woman that came to the conference who is a teacher, and I was talking with her, and this has happened at multiple conferences, by the way. But this was a conference we had a few years back. This is maybe a year back. Talking to this lady, and she says, the things you're saying at your conference are so harsh on teachers. But as I was sitting there during the session listening to you talk about practical education, I can't disagree with anything you just said. She goes, literally, it's probably 40% of the teachers at my school actually care about the students. I mean, so 60% of them just took the job because you essentially can't be fired, and you get permanent vacations, and they can get another job in the summer. And I'm going, are you serious? Because I knew like maybe a certain percentage of teachers weren't in it for the right reasons. But that was a teacher telling me that. And I just keep hearing that more and more teachers are disengaged. Somebody should look this up right now. Gallup did a study on disengaged teachers, and the numbers are alarming. It's more than 2 out of 3 teachers are disengaged. They're actively, they mentally have checked out. So for people out there that want to start to homeschool or at least learn more about it, what is your phone number one more time, and what's your website one more time?
941-677-0060. And our website is McGuffeysOnlineTutor.com.
Now, some of us went to public school, so how are you spelling McGuffey's?
Why McGuffey's? Well, McGuffey's is, if you want to understand, and this is very important today, if you want to understand what formed the thinking, the spirit of America, you use McGuffey's. So once your child goes through the McGuffey readers, which are America's textbook, they will understand Christopher Columbus. They will understand George Washington. They will understand the federal government. They will understand the thinking, the spirit, behind it, and it's kind. You know, it's so kind. I'm not saying weak, but it brings a kindness out, giving spirit out. And you know, America has been a very giving country.
Yeah. What is your website one more time? Your web address? How do I spell it?
McGuffeysOnlineTutor.com.
McGuffeysOnlineTutor.com. That's McGuffeysOnlineTutor.com. Patricia, I know you could be anywhere right now. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to help our listeners. And folks, if you need help with the homeschooling journey, if you just need to know where to start, what to do, how to do it, reach out today. Go to McGuffeysOnlineTutor.com. And Patricia, hope you have a blessed rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care. All right, Bean. So we just had a great guest on the show who explained in great detail what the listeners need to do, the first action step they need to take if they want to begin homeschooling their kids. Essentially, everybody out there, if you want to homeschool your kids, you just got to pick up the phone and make the call. Just give her a call. Call Patricia and just ask her, what do you need to do if you want to homeschool your kids? Now, Havana, you now go to St. Augustine. How many kids go to the school that you attend now, approximately?
I believe we're almost up to 300, but my grade, which is the largest grade now, has about 26 people.
26 people. And I can honestly say we've had the kids over, your class over to our backyard, and they're great kids.
Yeah.
They're great kids.
Yeah, I have a great class.
Tell the listeners out there some of the things that you learn at St. Augustine, because I 100% without reservation endorse that school. What kind of stuff do you learn at that school?
Okay, so St. Augustine is classical education, so you read a lot of original texts and books from back in the day, and they have a lot of focus on you learning your Constitution and learning just all these basic
Now, real quick, I want to make sure sorry to interrupt you. I want to make sure we get this idea. Is that we believe we believe as Christians that we have certain inalienable rights, and we derive those inalienable rights from the Creator, aka God.
Yes.
And then the Constitution simply upholds those rights.
Yes, it just identifies them and points them out, basically.
Right. So the concept of teaching you that America is inherently racist wouldn't work at your school because you already know the facts.
That is correct. What we do is we work through history, and we do a lot of Socratic circles, which is where you everyone gathers and you talk about it, and it actually helps you retain the information better.
Socratic circles?
Yes, I believe that's how you pronounce
From
it.
Socrates. Yes. Now, real quick, what are some of the people that you've read books about? Just share with the listeners the names of some of the people. No pressure. I'm just going to cue up the judgmental monk music. Let me cue it up here. No pressure. But what are some of the people that you have read books about, either when you were homeschooled or at school in general? What are some of the people that you've read about?
Well, we read Rules for a Night, which was really good. I cannot remember who wrote that,
That's
but
fair.
it's a really, really good book. And
You've read, though, books, I believe, about Rosa Parks.
yes.
I mean, you got all these books we've got.
Oh, yeah, I've read tons of history books. I can't think of them all off the top of my head,
Okay,
but a
that's fair.
lot of history books.
Okay, and all I can say is that you're turning out to be a great kid, and I'm honored to be your dad, love to be your dad. I just would say, though, if you're out there listening and you don't want to have a conversation with a brat known as your child, quit sending them to public schools. I never went through the bratty phase with you. We never had a bratty phase. So many people said, when your daughter turns 15, they're going to become a brat. It hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen. People say, the terrible twos, when your daughter's going to be 2, it's going to be terrible. Didn't happen. People say, yeah, but when your kids go to middle school, that's when it's going to become an issue. We haven't had those problems.
And I like to add on, too, if you're homeschooling your kid and you're a bad parent, I mean, your kid's going to end up really bad. So just putting that out there.
This just in from our home office. If you're a bad parent, you probably shouldn't homeschool. But what's crazy to me, and I just want to get your take on this because you and I have never had this conversation before. Gallup talks about teachers who are disengaged, meaning that the Gallup actually surveyed teachers. They picked up the phone, they called teachers. And this is what Gallup found, and it blows my mind. They discovered that just 31% of teachers are engaged. That means that 31% of teachers are actually trying.
Yeah.
Is
that's
that
crazy.
shocking to you?
Well, I've been blessed with some really great teachers, and I was talking to some kids I'd try out, if I went to a different youth group, and would say, hey, where did you go to school? And we get talking, and I was always shocked by the stories they had to tell about the teachers in public school. And there are some great teachers out there,
What
but
kind
they really
of stories
are the
did you
minority.
tell? What kind of stories did you hear? Just so I want to get some context, some meat on the bone for the listeners out there that are not aware of what you're talking about. What kind of jackassery did you hear about where fellow students are saying, hey, this happened at my school? Just give us maybe one example, maybe two.
Okay, I heard of a teacher that would assign homework, but she would never grade it, so she'd just throw it away. So you'd turn in your homework, and the kids that actually did the homework were essentially just being punished to do mindless tasks and then weren't even receiving a grade for compensation. So you just turned in your homework, and it was like, well, too bad for you. You actually did what you're supposed to do, and now there's no reward or no punishment for the kids that didn't do their homework.
That's unbelievable, but I guess it is believable. It's shocking, but it's true.
Yeah.
That blows my mind. Maybe what's one more example that you know of just the jackassery that is plaguing the school? Friends of yours, people in youth group. Tell us one more example of just the lack of engagement from teachers that is common today.
Well, a lot of kids are on their phone, which our school has really cracked down on. When I started going there, they decided to take a phone detox, and they just never did bring the phones back because the kids loved it so much. But a lot of kids say, all the kids in our class are on their phones, and the teachers can't do anything about it or won't even try to do anything about it. But, the teachers that do care do try to do something about it. Today I was talking to a lady, and she teaches in a public school in Dallas, and you could tell she was on fire. She loved what she was doing, but I'd never talked to a public school teacher like that before, nor had I really heard of one.
If you're out there today and you're saying, you know what, I want to not let my kids be indoctrinated by communist, left-leaning, socialist teachers, there's never been a better time to begin homeschooling than right now. Napoleon Hill once wrote, he said, the time will never be just right. The time will never be just right. You must act now. So in a time where just 31% of U.S. teachers are engaged in their work, just 31%. Think about that. Just 31% of U.S. teachers are engaged in their work. Is now the time to pull your kids? Is now the time to pull your kids from public school? Yes.
Well,
Yes.
also, I'd like to add, I mean, who cares more about their kid than the parent? So if you care about your kid, I mean, you'll find a way. It's not an impossible task. You're fully capable.
I encourage everybody out there, give Patricia a phone call. Check out her website, McGuffeysOnlineTutor.com. And now, without any further ado, we like to end each and every show with a boom. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom.